Hey, what is up, everybody, and a warm welcome to TSP TV. In today's episode, murder hornets. What's the deal with that? So, guys, you may have been aware, and unless you're living on a rock, that in the last week or so, the mention of murder hornets has made its way into mainstream news. Feeds as well as social media news feeds in the form of memes or little articles suggesting that these killer murder hornets have descended upon the shores of North America and around Europe. I've seen articles from Canada, America, and England reporting of these murder hornets. Now, they weren't always known as murder hornets. They are, in fact, Asian giant hornets. But under the pandemic and the fact that everybody is kind of in a state of fear, well, not everybody, but there are a lot of people that are in fear of the C virus that has got us all on lockdown, self-isolation, quarantine, shelter in place. And while a lot of people are in these conditions, they are tuning into their local news stations or maybe nationwide news stations or global agencies that are repeating the narrative of the pandemic propaganda. But that's not something we're going to be talking about today. But when in amongst all this mix and the fear, we've now been introduced to murder hornets. Now, let's not also neglect to mention that just recently the Pentagon also released and declared actual UFO footage. Yeah, they have some flying objects they can identify. Real UFOs confirmed by the Pentagon. Stuff of sci-fi indeed, all coming very, very true. Now, the first time I heard of the murder hornets, the first thing that popped into my mind was some of those classic B movies and big budget disaster movies, one of which, The Swarm, starring Michael Caine and Richard Chamberlain, to name a couple of the big superstars of the period that starred in the 1978 blockbuster entitled The Swarm. And there's also been a couple of other B movies, literally B movies about killer bees. And you know what B movies are, they're kind of not big budget. They may go straight to TV or straight to VHS or DVD these days, or maybe straight to streaming app. I don't know, showing my age there. But some of these movies depicted swarms of killer insects, or in particular bees, that come and stung people to death, causing widespread chaos and pandemonium. Now, many people do actually have a rational a medical, I guess, or psychological fear of insects. This isn't something that is unnormal. Many people do fear insects, spiders and such forth, creepy crawlers, make people cringe, and it's like people are scared of heights and things. It is a rational fear for many, many people. So imagine having the fear of insects and then the fear that they're murderous insects. Now, as I said, they weren't called murder hornets for ever. They've only been called and rebranded and rebadged under the pandemic, and I can only imagine for the purposes of intensifying fear. And as I've mentioned, some of these movies could even be predictive programming for a killer swarm of insects. I think in The Swarm they were African killer bees that somehow found their shores to North America, and that's pretty much a similar narrative to the killer murder hornets that have found their ways to North America and to Europe. And as I said, there's been some comical little memes floating around that I've seen in the days since the announcement of the arrival of murder hornets upon our shores. I also can remember an episode of The Simpsons where there was an outbreak in a disease. I think it might have even been the Osaka flu that was misinformed as the coronavirus. Some people started putting videos out about The Simpsons predicted the corona pandemic in an episode, but they kind of renamed the Osaka flu to coronavirus. They kind of manipulated it and changed it. But that's not to say that The Simpsons didn't get it pretty close and accurate. And there is one scene we will see in a little while where Kate Brockman says that they can't really, the only cure for this is bed rest. Any medication or cure that I would prescribe to you would be a placebo. And the inhabitants of Springfield, that kind of mob mentality, all there in fear, try to open up a truck with some crates in them, trying to find these placebos that will cure them, and they open up a case of killer bees. Was this predictive program as much as the movies of the 70s and those B movies you may see on Sci-Fi or TCM late at night? During certain sort of months, they have special B movie nights in marathons, such forth. But these movies have been around, and believe it or not, The Swarm was a movie that possibly as a child was one of the most terrifying movies I ever saw, because bees were real and they are, a real threat. There are people that are allergic to bee stings. The Simpsons again, Waylon Smithers, Mr. Burns' long-term doubting assistant, also was allergic to bee stings. People can die as a result of bee stings, and having a bee sting is very, very unpleasant. And as a child, having watched the movie The Swarm, I was petrified, absolutely terrified of bees, and would run inside if there was one in the back garden or scream and shout for quite some time after. So there is a fear factor element involved around the killer murder hornets. I keep calling them killer bees, but no, they're murder hornets. That would cause some people concern and might have them worrying a little bit more about things than before the announcement of murder hornets. Now, something a little bit more disturbing other than predictive programming from movies that might suggest we're about to get a killer swarm of insects is going to wipe out a large proportion of our population before somehow a crack team of scientists and doctors come together with a master plan to save the day. Is this about to take place now? But something much, much, much more disturbing about this is DARPA, the Defense Agency, Research Development, whatever they're called. I don't know their exact name, but you know who DARPA are. You must have heard of DARPA before now. But they actually have for some time researched into creating insect-sized drones for whatever purpose or needs DARPA has for insect-sized drones. They have spent an awful lot of money, manpower, and labor-intensive research trying to perfect this technology. So we will be looking into a few articles about murder hornets, a little bit where they come from, what the deal is with them, before we go and look into the more disturbing side of what possibly could be going on with DARPA and maybe a swarm of insect drones loaded with viruses, nanobot, antibacterial virus, things that they can inject in you that will change your DNA. Sounds like the stuff of science fiction, but not at all. So we will be going over right now to look at some articles and stuff on murder bugs. Before we do that, we do look into the DARPA stuff and the insect drone technology that is available before we conclude this little episode on the murder bugs. So let's step over right now to our first segment of articles on the murder hornets themselves. Okay guys, so here we come. I'm over at Bing. I've done a search for murder hornets, and this is some of the stuff you come up. First of all, we get a scary looking picture. Look how sinister this individual looks here. Let's get rid of that. Giant murder hornet gets cooked to death by swarm of bees, and even Ted Cruz. That would come out 39 minutes ago in The Sun. But that's just one. Could murder hornets survive in Ontario? Some bees can cook dreaded murder hornets, NYPD. Murder hornets could spell trouble for Canada's bee population. Very unlikely murder hornets will make their way to, I think that's Saskatchewan, there's one article there. Everything you need to know about murder hornets. Invasive murder hornets have been spotted in the USA. Murder hornets are now in the US. What does this mean? Murder hornets land in the US for the first time. That's from the BBC. The rush to stop the Asian murder hornets. What is an Asian giant murder hornet? So let's have a little look there at what they got to tell us. What are Asian giant hornets? What to know about murder hornets spotted in the US? The massive hornet can be devastating to honeybee populations and has a dangerous sting, and there's a picture of one of them there. The Asian giant hornet, known as the murder hornet, has officially been spotted in Washington state. The massive hornet can be devastating to honeybee populations. It also has an incredibly painful toxic sting that can be harmful to humans. The biggest hornet on the planet was spotted in the United States for the first time at the Washington State Department, and Washington State is also supposedly one of the epicenters of the virus, and there were supposed to be more victims there than anywhere else for a while, I believe. But they were spotted for the first time out there in Washington state, and at least 4 sightings of the Asian giant hornet, one of the most venomous insects in the world, near Blaine and Bellingham. Wash. Canada also reported sightings in British Columbia last fall. Known as the murder hornet, scientists are worried about the shockingly large invader's potential impact on the US honeybee populations if it is not contained, according to press release. Interesting narrative. If it's not contained, so we've got to contain the COVID. Maybe we're going to have to start containing the murder bug swarms. You feel me what I'm saying here? Maybe this is going to just be introduced in another level of control on top of the level of control we have among the fear, more spread of fear of the possibility of being stung to death by murder hornets. Here we go on again. They have the incredible toxic sting. Here's everything you need to know. What does the Asian giant hornet look like? Well, it looks like this. Those pictures there. To put it simply, they're like something out of a monster cartoon with its huge yellow-orange face. And again, trying to scare you. Monster cartoons. Although monster cartoons may not be as scary as horror movies, but still, there is a fear factor implied there. So they're about 2 inches long. They're long, orange or yellow head with prominent eyes, black and yellow striped abdomen, forage large colonies that usually nest in the ground. What does the sting feel like? It tells you there. First, the good news is Asian giant hornets prefer to feast on other critters and do not generally attack people or pets, per the SWSDA. They have a powerful mandibles that, in addition to bees, can easily wipe out larger insects. Their prey is usually killed by the queen hornet and demolished. The meal is taken back to her hive to feed younger hornets. The stinger is so long, in fact, it can even puncture a beekeeping suit. One beekeeper and entomologist who was assigned to exterminate a known hornet's hive on Vancouver Island was attacked during his mission, the New York Times reported. And they're known for their unbiased, accurate reporting, if ever there was an agency to be known for such things. That was sarcasm, by the way, if you missed that point. Even through a pair of shorts, thick sweatpants, and a bee suit, the man endured 7 stings, some of which drew blood. It was like having red-hot thumbtacks being driven into my flesh, he said. So again, adding a little bit of fear to people who may have a rational fear of insects. In people who are allergic to bee or wasp stings, it can even cause an anaphylactic shock and in some cases be lethal, even in people who have no allergies. Multiple stings can be deadly per the WSU release. The Times reports that the hornets kill up to 50 people a year in Japan. But wait, how did the Asian giant hornet get to the United States? What should I do if I think I see one? Typically, this hornet is found throughout all of Asia in forests and low mountains spanning from India to Japan, and officials say it's unclear how the species made its way to North America. It's unclear. So it doesn't really answer any questions. Insects are frequently transported in international cargo and are sometimes transported deliberately. Remember that word. The WSU release said, because the aggressive hornet poses such a threat to honeybees, officials are doing everything they can to prevent its spread while the population is small enough. And again, do you remember they tried to stop the spread of the virus when it was still small enough to do so? So again, maybe this is going to bring some more quarantine rules. Who knows? The WSU says the hornet was first spotted in December and will start to become more active in April. The most destructive during the late summer and early fall. If you think you've come across an Asian giant hornet in or near Washington State, do not go near it. If you find a colony, do not attempt to remove or eradicate it. Anyone who is allergic to bee or wasp stings should never approach an Asian giant hornet. So it goes on a little bit there to tell you what you need to know, although it doesn't really tell us much. But if we come over here and have a little look at the news section, there's that thing about cooked to death by a swarm of bees. Slim chance they become established in Canada. And look at this, that's 45 minutes, 1 hour ago, 1 hour ago. Could they survive in Ontario? 2 hours ago. Same thing about them being cooked by bees, 48 minutes, the USA Today. Daily Courier, 29 minutes. So as you can see, guys, in the last day, certainly in the last hour, there's been an awful lot of murder hornets related articles. Let's go back to that one, not this one. There was one that came out just a few minutes ago, 19 minutes, or was it 9 minutes? That one. Are they a serious threat? And this was just come out 9 minutes ago at the time of recording, although it doesn't seem to want to load the page for us for some untold reason. I do have an awful lot of bars on my Wi-Fi, so I'm not sure. Let's try again. Here we go. That's all we needed to do, is just get rid of that. What are murder hornets, and are they a serious threat? There is no reason to panic when it comes to murder hornets. It is more likely to die from a bee sting than from a murder hornet. Again, there's a little picture of what they look like for you all. They might be big and scary looking, but the so-called murder hornets do not present a real, a new reason for Americans to panic, although I'm pretty sure some people are panicking as a result of this. Maybe they haven't seen or read this article, they've just saw the scary things that have been circulating on mainstream media or social media about these. These oversized wing insects are native to Asia, especially in the rural mountains of Japan. They have yellow and black striped abdomens, big orange-yellow heads and large eyes. Same stuff as we just read, really. These hornets attack honeybees, decapitating them and flying away with the thoraxes to feed the offspring. Sightings, it's pretty much, maybe they even read and plagiarized the same article, but it's all about Pacific Northwest, which is kind of not that too distant or far away from Japan. As the crow flies, so to speak. So you can see here, guys, just going down here in the latest news, that there is an awful lot going on about murder hornets. And as I said, you can have been able to have avoided some mention of it, I'm guessing, on the last few days on your social news feeds, or maybe on mainstream. And this was the one we wanted to come across. The Huffington Post. The Simpsons predicted coronavirus and murder hornets, sort of, back in 1993. And let's see if we can press this one for you.
Lights out, you punk kids! Did an episode of The Simpsons predict the coronavirus lockdown 20 years ago? British TV writer Scott Ryan tweeted a pic of a Simpsons episode from 1999. In Wild Bart's Can't Be Broken, anyone under the age of 70 years old had to abide by the curfew in Springfield, even the local news anchor. This is Kent Rockman reporting from my own home in accordance with the new curfew for anyone under 70. And right now, anchors around the country are saying this exact same phrase. Ryan wrote, "I hate to say it, I really do, but The Simpsons has, I can't actually." But the New York Post says the episode is not about a virus at all. It's about authorities accusing kids of vandalizing Springfield Elementary School. That's why the curfew on the episode was anyone under the age of 70. Still, many say what's happening now and in that episode are eerily similar. This comes days after the co-writer of the 1993 Simpsons episode Margin Chains, Bill Oakley, shared his frustration after his episode where the fictional Osaka flu spreads through Springfield was likened to the current pandemic. Lights out, you
Unfortunately, they didn't
did an episode
show the scene that I wanted you to see. Continue reading if they've got the other one of the Osaka flu on here. This was it. Here we go. This was the second one we wanted you to see.
Why, the only cure is bed rest. Anything I give you would only be a placebo.
Where do we get these placebos?
Maybe there's some in this truck.
So there it was. That was the little clip I did want you to see. But as we said, once again, the Simpsons do come out with their with another prediction, as they seem to have such a track record for doing it. A writer of the Simpsons called Trolls called out the trolls in March for using an episode to spread racist propaganda, but here Twitter users appear to be enjoying the same grim humor, especially with the murder hornets now adding to the collective dread over the coronavirus pandemic. Exactly what I was just telling you in the opening segment of this episode. So there we go. We said they manipulated the Osaka flu to say it looked like the coronavirus. Margin Chains Part 2. Let's have a little look at this one while we're here. Can we? Oh, it's not playing. I'm sorry about that, guys. But there you had a couple of interesting stuff from the look who just popped up there. Good old Dr. Tam. She's a scary looking individual. Could new 19 model show a tragic paradox playing out in Canada? And again, there we go. Look, the article. Watch out for murder hornets because 2020 just keeps going. So let's come back out of there. And as we said, lots and lots of articles, and there it is again. The Simpsons come eerily close to predicting the coronavirus and the murder bugs. So that was a couple of things just to sort of demonstrate and show you how mainstream media is kind of in the news agencies are sort of saturating articles about the murder hornets, and people are kind of what you need to know. This stuff is a lot going on about the murder hornets. So maybe, you know, it's a little bit refreshing to have something else other than coronavirus pandemic propaganda on our news feeds. Let's get a little bit of the murder hornets into the mix as well. Gives us a little bit of variety of fear to select from. So anyway, guys, that was the murder hornets. The next little segment of articles we're going to look into where it is going to get a little bit scary, creepy, and disturbing. So stay tuned. Okie dokie, guys. So here we are with the DARPA experimentation and research into insect and bird drones. And we actually have a few articles here we are going to look at that concern DARPA and their insect drones in particular. Now, a little while ago, I did a live show, and I can't remember the title. It's no longer on the channel. It's part of the content I did remove in an attempt to keep this channel from being terminated under some extreme community strikes and code red statuses that I was under for quite some time as part of the shadow banning and passive censorship that my channel seems to target from the AI algorithm that YouTube uses. But within that live feed, it was something about the Saturday morning cartoons of the 1980s shaping and predicting the society that which we live in. In particular, one of those cartoons that I pointed out was Transformers. Classic cartoon. Transformers robot in disguise also has spawned in later years a movie series franchise, as well as a reboot of the comic books and cartoons, as well as a beloved and popular brand and line of toys. But in particular, the Transformers, they had the Decepticons, you know, those ones that caused deceit and deception, the bad guys, the airplanes, the guns and stuff. They actually had a group of robots called the Insecticons that were tiny little insect transformers that did go out and cause some damage to the crops and farm belt. In one particular episode I can remember from way back that they were going down and causing some kind of famine as a result of eating up all the crops and the farmers. And we will be getting into a little bit of an article on DARPA's Insect Allies project. Yes, they have a project called Insect Allies we will be looking at momentarily, but DARPA's insect, bird and drones are on the way. Now, this is what I'm going to suggest. So we did talk about the movies, the swarm killer bees, where, you know, these killer insects kind of descended upon North America and killed a mass percentage of the population as a result of doing so, before a crack team of scientists saved the day. But in the early 20th century, the Wright brothers made history in developing the world's first successful aeroplane. Because of them, people began flying in the sky using heavier than air vehicles, which remains a constant practice even today. And yet over 100 years later, the prevailing technology by popular demand are drones, both military, unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, and consumer-based drones. Not only has flight gone unmanned, but they appear to be getting smaller and smarter every year. Today's consumer-based drone is the size of a basketball, as opposed to the UAV drones the military have used over the years. For DARPA, however, the drones have yet to reach their potential size, i.e., soon drones will be the size of small birds and insects. Now, I don't know what that's a little picture of a drone, I guess. Doesn't look very small there. That looks like a big one. But the program aims to develop and demonstrate autonomous UAVs small enough to fit through an open window and be able to fly at speeds up to 20 meters per second, 45 miles per hour, while navigating within complex indoor spaces independent of communication with outside operators or sensors and without the reliance on GPS waypoints. DARPA. So just imagine if they had a whole swarm, like literally hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of these tiny insect-sized drones that could travel at 45 miles an hour and navigate through buildings and open windows without being controlled by an operator. Think about that for a second. And there is a little picture of one of those tiny little drones. I don't know if you can kind of see there. There is what looks to be a little point. on it. But anyway, DARPA had recently issued a broad agency announcement solicitation for their Fast Lightweight Autonomy FLA program, which is said will develop a whole new class of algorithms that'll ensure the stability and efficiency of flight in their UAVs, similar to that of a bird and stroke or insect. They are looking to engineer drones small enough to pass through open windows, smart enough to clear entire obstacles without error, and fast enough to cover greater distance under less time in comparison to previously engineered drones. If their FLA program is successful, DARPA hopes to apply them for urban and relief operations. What kind of urban operations would require small insect-sized drones? Ask yourself, guys. And what kind of relief could an insect-sized drone bring anybody? I'm not sure. Where are we? Which will require lengthy amounts of time without human intervention and sufficient show of navigation. So, let's set out a swarm of these and they can be left to their own devices without human supervision for some considerable time. Again, let that sink in, guys, what you're reading here, and why is a defense agency researching into insect-sized drones for urban and relief efforts? What could possibly be the incentive to get this? The goal of the FLA program is to explore non-traditional perception and autonomy, that's a difficult word to say for me, methods that would give small UAVs the capacity to perform in a similar way, including the ability to easily navigate tight spaces at high speed and quickly recognize if it had already been in a room before. Very interesting. Very interesting. It looks like this video has been removed. Yep, that's not there. Future implications. The popularity of drones this year is higher than any year before. The military are using them far more often than deploying boots on the ground, whereas consumers are purchasing their own personalized drones at a staggering rate. As a matter of fact, it was one of the most popular gifts people received during the winter holidays, so much so that the FAA joined with other organizations in launching a website to ensure operators of drones abide by federal regulations and safety guidelines. Pretty sure DARPA don't have to abide by those federal regulations and safety guidelines that common citizens for consumer use have to abide by. Though these regulations and guidelines are in regards to consumer-based drones currently in the market today, how will the FAA, let alone the federal government in general, be able to maintain regulations of a consumer-based market of drones the size of insects? Eventually, we'll have to throw in the towel and admit to ourselves that drones are just a way of life now, and all we can do is create new laws and regulations that maintain safety. Didn't actually say those laws and regulations were the safety of drone use. It just said that we have to create new laws and regulations. Remember that as well, guys. All the while encouraging open source access to drone technology. So that was one particular article, and I think that actually came out quite some time ago, from 2014. Yeah, there you go, that come from 2014. So here we go, coming soon, insect drones, courtesy of DARPA, and this is from the Giza Death Star. Let's have a little look. Coming soon. Now, this is a very interesting article, guys, for you to pay attention to. Again, come out February 13th, 2014. Coming soon. Insect drones, courtesy of DARPA. Mr. GB shadowed this one, and as you can see, it made the final cut. In this 2-week period of email and article vetting, this one is both fun and profoundly disturbing, since the profoundly disturbing part concerns to say's high octane speculation. Again, this was written 6 years ago, sorry, and it is high-octane speculation in contemporary days. Also, I'll leave it to you to distill the fun part out of this article. So let's get into it. Rise of the insect drones. Now, when one gets past the computer modeling of insect wing behavior and the resulting vortices and resonance effects, one comes to this intriguing paragraph. Dixon and electrical engineer Ron Fearing won a $2.5 million DARPA grant in 1998 to apply these principles to a fly-size robot. Back in the 90s, guys. Back in the 90s, 22 years ago. They assigned a graduate student named Rob Wood, among others, to help develop techniques to fabricate the tiny parts and painstakingly assemble them with a pair of tweezers. Dixon and Fearing also communicated which aerodynamic insights the students should try to reproduce. Flies have really complex wing trajectories. There are a whole bunch of subtle things that happen, Wood said. Michael told us the most important features to generate vortices, that word, sorry guys if I can't read it, my apologies. And other aerodynamic effects. In other words, enter DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or as we lovingly refer to it here, the diabolically apocalyptic research product agency. One wonders just exactly what interest DARPA would have in the ability to create insect drones. Hang on, we're getting there. And I kind of like touched upon this in the previous article, that what if they had a whole swarm of these, and what if they were kind of maybe, you know, they had some vaccine implanted within them, or maybe they had some virus implanted in them that they could pass on as a result of stinging you. And maybe if you were stung by one of these robot drones, you might just think you've been stung by a regular insect. See what I'm saying, guys? We're getting to that. Before we do, however, consider these paragraphs, and I think the answer becomes self-evident. Other researchers have used flapping wing dynamics to reduce the size of aerial vehicles capable of carrying payloads. That's what I'm talking about. What is the payload they're going to be carrying? Maybe they can, you know, we have nanobot technology that can change the structure of DNA, and we will be looking a little into, after we finish this article, into DARPA's Insect Allies project, which is very interesting, of carrying payloads. In 2011, California-based AeroVironment deemed its Nano Hummingbird. The aircraft has a 16.5 centimeter wingspan. It can fly vertically and horizontally and hover in place against gusting wind. It weighs 19 grams, lighter than some AA batteries, but it carries a camera, communications systems, and an emergency energy source. It's not an emergency energy source, it's just an energy source. TechJect, a company that spun off from work done at the Georgia Institute of Technology, recently unveiled a robotic dragonfly with a 6-inch wingspan. It weighs in at 5.5 grams, lighter than a quarter of an ounce of marijuana, and can be outfitted with modular electronics packages enabling high definition video and wireless communication. Sorry, I don't know why I said it like that. The TechJect Dragonfly takes advantage of an aerodynamics principle called resonance. When the wings flap at their most efficient frequency, which happens when air density, wing speed, and organism's weight are perfectly balances, this creates waves of vortices that merge and build. That merge and build. The audio result is the hum of a hummingbird or the buzz of a bee, says Jayant Ratti, TechJet's president. A flapping wing drone utilizing resonance generates significant improvements in energy efficiency, creating optimal lift with minimal effort, emphasis added. In other words, these tiny insect-like drones carry publicly available camera and communications technology, spyware. In other words, now imagine taking these engineering techniques and replacing them with small, life-sized and miniaturized technology available to the military and intelligence communities, and with the requisite engineering, one would have the platform for surveillance or for the delivery of small surveillance packages. Is it a real fly speck or a microphone, or even one where particularly diabolical, and this is the scary part, guy, and remember we're dealing with DARPA, the means to deliver some nasty toxins via the mosquito bite of an insect drone? Is this why all of a sudden we have murder drones making the murder hornets rather, sorry, I got confused then, caught up in a moment, murder hornets arriving on the shores of North America, Canada and Europe, because they're not in fact Asian giant hornets at all. They're not murder hornets. They are in fact a swarm of tiny robotic drones armed with toxins. Thus, one can envision the impact on security as well. Room sweeps will now have to include making sure all insects have vacated the room. See you on the flip side. So there we go. That's what I was talking about. So have they weaponized these tiny little insect drones with toxins or venoms that could inject the population? Are they not only, are they going to stage a false flag killer bee, killer insect psychological operation into the mix, while we are currently on another psychological operation, Project COVID? Where is this? Here we go. This is the very, very interesting one that I wanted to see. If the one before wasn't interested enough to give you the suggestion in the thought train of why exactly DARPA are possibly so very, very interested in insect-sized drone technologies and their capacity to record video, audio, as well as carrying small payloads. So Insect Allies, DARPA, and this is actually from their website, guys, their website. Isn't an independent, this is their website itself. Insect Allies by Dr. Blake Bechstein. The Insect Allies program is pursuing scalable, readily deployable, and generalizable countermeasures against potential natural and endangered threats to the food supply, with the goals of preserving the U.S. crop system. Again, they always try to put it in the guise of preserving medical safety, sustainability, but they hide more sinister agendas deep down in the root of it. National security can quickly be jeopardized by naturally occurring threats. Pardon me, there was a burp. That one's for you, baby P, as always. And if you're keeping count, that's one. National security can quickly be jeopardized by naturally occurring threats. Now, we may be currently jeopardized by a naturally occurring threat in the form of COVID, whether or not it's naturally generating, or it was artificially generated, or is fabricatedly generated. Although I was not sure if that's correct, but was it generated in the mines in like the Emperor's third new clothes doesn't really exist. It's just there in public to keep us under control and in a state of fear. Anyone who questions it would be ridiculed. naturally occurring threats to the crop system, and this is where it gets interesting, including pathogens, drought, flooding, and frost, but especially by threats introduced by state or non-state actors. Interesting choice of words they used there, don't you think, boys and girls? Anyway, Insect Allies seeks to mitigate the impact of these incursions by applying targeted therapies to mature plants. Now, they're talking about trying to save plants and crops, but I'm pretty sure the same principles and ethics could be applied to living beings such as humans, or maybe animals perhaps, into mature plants with effects that are expressed at relevant time scales, with effects, remember that bit, effects, time release, perhaps, namely within a single growing season, such as an unprecedented capability would provide an urgently needed alternative to pesticides, selective breeding, slash and burn clearing, and that word, quarantine, which we're all under. So imagine if they launch a bunch of fucking microscopic insect-sized drones armed with a vaccine or with the pathogens of a virus that could fly through windows, navigate around condo buildings, office blocks, all that stuff, know whether it's been in a room before, drop its sting, and then go on to the next person. They're saying they're using this for plants. What they want to do is release a swarm of these insects into crops that would then inject the mature plants with pathogens and stuff that would preserve them, maybe GMOs, I don't know, all DNA altering nanobot technology perhaps. So there we were, where we were, back to that, clearing and quarantine, which are often inefficient against rapidly emerging threats. Maybe the rapidly emerging threat of a virus that doesn't necessarily exist, but is led to believe by the masses is a killer one, and are not suited to securing mature plants, or humans for that matter. To develop such countermeasures, Insect Allies performer teams are leveraging a natural and effective two-step delivery system to transfer modified genes to plants or humans. Insect vectors and these plant viruses they transmit. The program's three technical areas: viral manipulation, very interesting word, insect vector optimization, and selective gene therapy in mature plants, layer together to support the goal of rapidly modifying plant traits without the need for extensive infrastructure. Since the start of the program, Insect Allies teams with expertise in molecular and synthetic biology have demonstrated mounting technical breakthroughs that are providing foundational knowledge in plant virus gene editing. And again, they're saying it's plants, but are they also trying to edit human genes? And are these little murder hornet microscopic insect-sized drones about to genetically change the DNA of humans? Plant virus gene editing, the disease vector biology from which the program will continue to build. DARPA emphasizes biosafety and biosecurity in this research. All work is conducted inside closed laboratories, greenhouses, or other secured facilities. DARPA is not funding open release. So that was DARPA's Insect Allies project. Now, if we kind of just go over here and we'll click on images, here are a few of some of these insect-sized drones that could possibly be armed with payloads of pathogens, toxins, DNA altering nanobot technology. So bug spies, you know, they exist, people. This isn't the thing of science fiction or comic books or crazy Simpsons episodes. So we will be going back to the studio just to finish up this episode. It does have some very startling revelations in it. As I said, guys, as always, I'm not telling you this is exactly what DARPA are up to. They're getting an army of militarized drones armed with pathogens, viruses, or toxins that are going to then be let loose into society and attack humans. I'm just pointing out quite possibly some connections and links that could be connected to the recent sighting of murder hornets. So as I said, we're going to go back to the studio just now to finish up. Okay, so welcome back to the studio, and I hope you enjoyed those articles and certainly found them informative, maybe even a little bit interesting and possibly thought-provoking. And I will reiterate that I'm not telling you or saying by any stretch of the imagination this is exactly what is going on, this is what's going to happen. We're going to see a swarm of robotic insect-sized drones that are going to start wiping out humanity. I'm just pointing out the fact that there are insect drones, there is technology, and DARPA do have research into this in order to try and find out how they can utilize these little insect drones to maybe influence plants and crops with DNA altering pathogens or technologies or whatever. And could they apply this to humans or animals, other living creatures? And I possibly think that they could, and probably that is what they are trying to research more, but just letting you know that it's to save the crops. So as I said, guys, we are under a global pandemic. There is a lot of fear already, and there is now the additional fear factor of murder hornets. So hopefully this has given you some food for thought. I do, as always, encourage and appreciate any feedback, comments, thoughts and opinions you may have in the comments below. You know how it works by now, guys. And that's about it. Not much more I can say or add to this. Other than thank you very much for watching TSP TV. You do know that this is a ship video production. We will see you in the next one. Until then, guys, keep it thrifty and remember, be excellent to one another. Catch you next time, guys. Stay safe.